It's Monday, and you know what that means. Welcome to Wrestling Tonight, live from the No Cell Studios. I'm the Ace of the Tavern, Acefield Retro, joined as always by my compadre in crime, the one bad Chad. What's up, dude?
Same old, man. But now we're sitting in the fallout of Rumble. So I knew this was going to be a Rumble heavy show. A lot of stuff coming out of the Royal Rumble this weekend. I'm excited to get into it, dude.
Yeah, we are on the road to WrestleMania 39 and from LA, and there have been some bumps in the road, but it's one of those predictable things. You know where the road was leading you, and it feels like we're exactly where we thought we'd be. But of course, we'll get into that. It's predictable, but sometimes predictable is not bad.
Oh, no. I mean, sometimes I always say it, predictability can be a good thing, especially in pro wrestling. Like if all the stories that you're wanting to pay off are converging at the right time, I feel like it's hard to just want a swerve. Like why do you just want to, sometimes you want a swerve, sometimes you need a swerve, but we'll get into the Rumble and if it needed a swerve. Guys, if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, we're live now on YouTube every Monday night at 7 p.m. If you can't sit down and watch the live stream, go to our Apple and Spotify Tuesday mornings. We're dropping Wrestling Tonight. It's taking place of our old movie show, Broken VCR, which is still on its way to you on its separate channel. So keep abreast of that. And if you want anything Turnbuckle Tavern, go to turnbuckletavern.com. Give us some love, give us some reviews, give us some shares, some follows, some subscribes. We appreciate any of that.
Absolutely, man. And the thing is that sport goes a really long way, and shows like this exist because of you guys. So really appreciate you listening to all the Turnbuckle Tavern shows, not just Wrestling Tonight, but go down the list. We have content for everybody. So go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, man, you guys, just a quick plug before we dive into the show. You guys are launching season 3 of Shot of Nostalgia this Friday. We're going back to WWE 1998. That's going to be exciting. So I'm pumped for that. So guys, if you like going down, the memory lane of pro wrestling, jump in the DeLorean, go with Mike and Ace back to 1998. It's going to be a hell of a ride. Yeah,
we never quite addressed it about Doc Brown and Marty McFly. I do like the comparison. We used it on one of the later episodes of ECW, but it's a dive back into history. And 1998 is so similar to 1995 ECW, but also so different. And it's one of those things. We're reviewing the first 2 Raws in Royal Rumble 1998. And I got to say, man, the mid card is super rough in 1998. And I think we all kind of look past the weaknesses of that time when we were fans because of, I don't know, we were kids and it was just so exciting to watch, but there's a lot of holes in the roster. So I'm seeing how it ages. It's going to be really fascinating.
Yeah. And I love how you guys always bring up the parallels of modern day and back then, and how, wrestling is a secular wheel. It just keeps spinning and we see a lot of the same things. It's fun to kind of dive into that.
Speaking of diving in, let's get into our first story, man.
Yeah, let's get into the big 3.
Man, here it is. Story number 1, and how could we not lead with it? Cody Rhodes predictably won the 2023 Royal Rumble. So I got to say, man, this is the first Royal Rumble in quite some time that I have to think about that no one's really talking about the Rumble winners because of what happened at the end of the show. But here we are. Cody Rhodes wins from number 30. Everybody expected this when he came back. This was circled on the calendar, especially after he got hurt in that Hell in a Cell match, or before the Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins. This was the moment we all kind of looked at. Wrestling is one of those things that's ever flowing. And if you would have said people would be sort of disappointed that this happened, I think they would have thought you'd be crazy. But I can't help but feel like something was missing because it wasn't Sami Zayn. That might just be selfishly me.
No, I'm with you. I think there was a groundswell of Sami support, and I wonder if that would have happened if Cody wasn't away on injury. It's like when Cody disappeared, that's when Sami really caught fire. And, out of sight, out of mind in a wrestling fan, we're wanting Cody's return, but in the meantime, Sammy's blowing up. So I think there was like a contingent of fans that was wanting that to happen. I was kind of wanting that to happen. I thought that's where the push was coming, but I just feel like that torn pec was a bump in the road for Cody. This was the plan all along. And thankfully that recovery time aligned with him being able to return at the Rumble. I'm still kind of skeptical if they should have announced him coming into the Rumble. Like I know we all knew it was going to happen, but once those entries kept ticking away, I just kind of knew he was going to come in at 30 and win it, especially with no drama of Sami even being involved in the Rumble, no Bloodline even involved in the Rumble. I did think the Rumble came across as a little paint by numbers, a little telegraphed, but the one aspect of it I did like was they showcased the entire roster.
Yeah.
There was a lot of tag team guys in there, but I did like, I thought there were some good spots in it. I just don't know if this Rumble is going to be one of those really memorable Rumbles you look back on, especially like you said, how they ended the show.
100%. And I think a lot of what the Rumble was, it was safe. I mean, they set some programs up with Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. We planted the seeds for potentially Logan Paul and Seth Rollins. And of course, obviously Cody Rhodes going off to win the championship. And now the question is, how are we going to get there? How do you intertwine the Cody Rhodes story with Roman Reigns? Because Roman Reigns has been on one path, and obviously he has other guys falling into the path, but the storyline really has been the bloodline and what's going on with that. So how are we going to figure out a way to tie Cody into this? And of course, wrestling on any given night, we can have Cody coming out on Raw tonight and say he's coming after Roman and the story begins there. But I can't help but feel robbed if we're going to get the culmination of the Sami story at Elimination Chamber. So I don't know. I think the right call and the safe call was Cody Rhodes, but like we said last week, and you said on the flagship, and you've said everywhere in the debate that dropped today, if they had some balls, they would have made a decision and went with Sami Zayn, because that's where, to me, you had the chance to sort of really impress people with your creativity and willing to look at things progressively and not just go with, all right, this was the plan, we're going to stick to it. But there's something admirable about sticking to the plan and staying true to what you had decided, because Cody Rhodes, after all, this deserves this moment. He came to WWE for this moment, like to get to WrestleMania and be crowned. But it just sucks that like now there's also like that story outside of it. Like maybe people don't want this. And I don't know. That's not how I wanted it for Cody.
No, there is something. It would have done fan service to thrust Sami into that spot because he was the guy with the hot hand. But at the same time, like if they had a plan in place, we don't know. And this is coming from someone who was calling for Sami to win. But if I take a step back and really look at it, we don't know what putting him in that position would have screwed up, because this isn't just a cut and dry one-on-one mano a mano story. We're talking about a lot of moving parts. The Usos, the bloodline has a lot of moving parts. So to just take Cody out of the equation, maybe that would have had a trickle down effect on what they have planned going forward. And they would have really had to hot shot shit. And I think as fans, you can see when someone's hot shotting something, and it really, sometimes it can affect the mid card, so maybe I'm cautiously optimistic that this Cody Roman feud that's about to build towards Mania, it has all the pieces to make an iconic main event if handled correctly. But I'm with you. I'm very curious. I'm very intrigued to see how Cody comes into this. He's been out of commission for 6-7 months, 8 months, something like that.
Yeah, since about June, July. Yeah.
So for him to come in, I really hope they do something that isn't just him coming down. I know he won the Mania match and he could easily just come down to the ring and call out Roman, but I hope Cody is thrust into this bloodline story and they find a way to kind of interweave him into what they already have going on without it just being this outside challenger challenging Roman. I want to see him wrapped up in this great storytelling that they've been telling for several years.
Yeah, and a lot of my problem with Cody winning, which is not even a problem, is it's not the predictability. Because if you look at some of the best Rumbles in history, it's been predictable. Go back to 1998 WWF, like we're talking about. Everybody knew Stone Cold was winning. He was the only true option of winning that Rumble. So Cody being predictable is not the issue. My issue is sort of long term. I don't want Cody to have that Batista effect or maybe be booed like Roman Reigns was when they pushed him and no one wanted him. And I'm not saying that he got cheered. Don't get me wrong. San Antonio was very into with Cody Rhodes, and they made the right choice by making it very clear that Sami wasn't in this Rumble. They kind of learned from the mistakes of Daniel Bryan back when Rey Mysterio came out at number 30 and it wasn't Daniel Bryan and people were booing Rey Mysterio. That's how passionate they were. And obviously the history goes on from there where WrestleMania became a thing because fans wanted it. They really set it clear that Sami Zayn, the Roman Reigns stuff, Kevin Owens, that's separate of the Rumble. And they made that apparent prior to the match. So there wasn't any false aspirations of maybe Sami coming in and surprising people. So I thought they did a good job of that, really biding their time and making sure people weren't expecting something that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the only way you could have had Sami involved in that Rumble is if on his elimination it's somehow tied into this Bloodline situation where the heat of him being eliminated wasn't thrust on the booking of the match, but was thrust on the heels of the story, which is the Bloodline. If there was something that happened there where the fans could boo someone for putting him out, I think it could have worked. I just really wanted that drama of, I mean, that those were the two guys the fans were wanting. So there was drama in that. And I loved the way it all played out, but man, imagine if the final three guys were Sami, Gunther, and Cody.
Right.
Then you're like, what's going to happen? But overall, I'm excited. I think this whole two royal families, we've got a reference to Cody's entrance music, but these two dynastic families colliding at Mania, I think the meat on the bone there is so thick that they could, Cody's going to cut some heartfelt promos. The guy can cry on a dime.
He's crying tonight on Raw. You know that.
Yeah, he's crying tonight on Raw. So I am excited, man. I'm excited to see Cody in that top spot. I'm happy for the guy.
Yeah, and before we continue with the Cody conversation, I know there were some complaints about the lack of surprises in the men's Royal Rumble. Obviously, the women's Royal Rumble we'll talk about in quick hitters. I think we had Booker T, Logan Paul were the only two real surprises we had here. Edge, I guess, technically was coming back. So I guess the expectation has become these surprises. And I was really thinking about it today before we were going on the air about why that is the case. And I think a lot that's missing is how NXT has been really butchered, where there's no guys that can come out where you feel excited about seeing some of these dream matches. I think some of the best Rumble moments in the past 10 years had to do with some of these guys like Johnny Gargano or Ricochet, or guys that you're seeing for the first time interact with the main roster. And I think seeing guys from NXT or the NXT of now doesn't feel the same because there isn't the same buzz of making it from black and gold to the main roster without any sort of hype. It just feels like these guys are either miscast and then they're changed into a different character on their way up to the main roster. But it would have been cool to see a guy like Braun Breaker. I think he's the only guy who had that effect. They're not winning, but you also know Baron Corbin's not winning. So you might as well have Braun Breaker in there to see him interact with a guy like Gunther or a guy like Edge. It'd be really cool to see those guys and tell those stories. And seeing guys that aren't usually locking up, that used to be the appeal of Raw and SmackDown, but that now it's the NXT piece because those guys are not wrestling the main roster guys on a weekly basis. But NXT needs a new rehaul. And that's sort of my pull away from this is that NXT, what's going on now, it's been better, but it's not what it was.
Yeah. The only guy I could see coming in from, and this is to your point of NXT needing work, is the only guy that would have came into the Rumble that I would have been kind of really pumped for would be Braun Breaker. But when I see guys like Otis, Chad Gable, Street Profits, when I see tag teams in there, I get you got to fill out your 30, but when I see a tag team guy, why are they in there? Like it kind of speaks to the way they handle tag teams. Now I understand if it's like a star. I feel like Montez Ford, you throw him in there, you're thinking, ooh, He could break out. This could be a breakout performance for a singles guy, but I never get pumped on seeing tag team guys in there as much. I know it goes back all the way to, 89 with Demolition kicking the Rumble off. I know it's a tried and true staple, but I would rather see, a Braun Breaker come in place of one of the Street Profits. I didn't have a problem with the lack of surprises as much. I don't want to see a ton. I like that they featured the roster really heavy, but at the same time, I think one, maybe two little surprises would have added some fan service to the match, but I'm not going to bitch too much.
Yeah, and getting back to Cody for a sec, they did the media scrum similar to what AEW does, but it's more of a work here where Triple H spoke, also Cody Rhodes spoke, a whole bunch of people, but most notably, what Triple H said about Cody Rhodes was really great. He spoke to him being very similar to his dad. And this is the quote here I want to say and put in quotes. That's an amazing accomplishment after such an incredible setback. I can't help. When I look at him, I do see his dad. I look in his eyes and I see his dad's eyes. I see Dusty, but I see all the best things of Dusty. And then I see something more in Cody. Like, what's better than what Triple H said? They're both very complimentary of each other, especially after the tattered history. And they addressed that. We'll get into that in the quick hitters about this history of Cody Rhodes taking shots. These guys have a long history, and it's been separated by years apart, but it seems like there's a mutual respect that has grown over time.
Yeah, man. I loved the presser. I mean, we have a clip of both guys kind of talking if you want to throw it in this one.
Absolutely. Pop it in.
Let's go.
Triple H has no reason to be a fan of mine. I smashed the throne. I took a lot of shots, always lighthearted, but I think he knew where it was coming from. I was hungry. I talked to him in a gorilla position one time when I was really frustrated doing Stardust, and I went to walk out, and he looked back at me and he said, "Hey, rattle the cages." I took it real literally and went out and rattled them as much as I could, and I'm so glad that relationship gets to develop now. I'm glad that he's the coach and I get to play, and I want to play quarterback. And I'm just, again, I owe him a lot for how he handled my dad, but I don't want him to look at me and see my dad. Damn it. I want him to look at me and see me. And today I felt like he saw me.
I can't help it, but when I look at him, I do see his dad. I look in his eyes and I see his dad's eyes. I see Dusty, but I see all the best things of Dusty, and then I see something more in Cody. So it's not about comparing him. I just see the greatness of his dad amplified in his dad's son, and that's something special. He's a special talent, a special human being, and I'm very proud of him for that.
It seemed like there was a little slip of the tongue there by Cody when he's like, I'm happy that I'm getting to play, and he stopped himself. I want to play quarterback. So it's like, to me, I read that like the writing is on the wall. This guy's going to be the top guy. I think, I know on the debate today, I came out and said, I think Roman leaves Mania as champion, but depending on how this story lays out, this could be Cody's coronation at Mania.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, I think Cody has reinvented himself to the point where he's a believable threat, and he's the guy probably would best benefit from that rub that Roman's been harboring for so much time that we're waiting to give it to someone to make a megastar. And who's better than Cody Rhodes? You watch him at that press conference, so polished, so poised, with the pitch black, with the awareness to drink the Mountain Dew and say how great it is. And he's like everything about him is WWE. And it's so crazy that we sat here over a year ago and we're wondering if it would be a fit. Is he actually leaving it? Like, it seems like the most obvious thing now. He is corporate America, man. Like, and he's able to slide back in there and be the best spokesman for a family-friendly entertainment. It seems tailor-made. And it's funny that we didn't see it at first.
Honestly, I don't think it's so much that he's tailor-made for WWE. I think he is a consummate company man. When he was flying the flag of the revolution in AEW, you couldn't see anyone else doing that.
True.
He was the guy. He fit it like a glove. He said all the right things. He took all of those lighthearted shots at Triple H. I mean, we rallied behind that man. But now he goes to WWE, and like you said, it fits like a glove. I just think this guy has mastered PR. He has mastered behind the scenes pro wrestling, and he knows what game he's playing and which company he's in. I still don't think it's out of the possibility in the future we see him back in AEW giving a return and cutting some promo of I went to the big company and I won their belt. I don't think it's off the table.
No, I agree with you. And then, I mean, it's a perfect transition to this part was, he gave that nod to the Elite after winning on the ropes. He did the Elite sign with the too sweet, and he also did the gun gesture.
Yeah,
and the
we
Bucks
have that
responded
clip.
in kind.
We have the clip of the too sweet. If everybody knows, I mean, if you're a fan of the Elite, the Bullet Club, that is their MO, that they have kind of adopted the NWO too sweet. It was all over being the Elite. But here is Cody Rhodes. This is the moment he stands on the turnbuckle right before he points at the WrestleMania sign. He gives this.
Highs to the lowest of lows. The American Nightmare staring at the WrestleMania sign.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if you would have showed someone that clip, it would be like a BTE thing from 2018. Like if you would have seen that, and to think how far we've come and how wrestling has swerved in a way that he's there and they're there and everybody's sort of happy now. It's crazy to even look at.
I know, man. And the plot thickens, he does that motion. And if it was just that, I feel like the wrestling community wouldn't have really picked up on that. It's like, oh, he gives the too sweet. Honestly, I got to be fully like transparent. I didn't even pick up on that. Like I was kind of in the moment of him pointing at the sign. It didn't register to me until I went on Twitter and I saw this. So the Bucks, they're some of the best trolls in the business. And their big thing is updating their Twitter bio. That's kind of their gimmick. And shortly after he wins the Rumble, they update their Twitter bio with the too sweet hand emoji and a gun. Ace, when you see this, do you think this is just former friends kind of acknowledging one another? Or do you have your tinfoil hat on in any way where you're thinking, man, was this not to say he went over, he's coming back with the title, none of that conspiracy shit, but it does make me think like there could have been that conversation of, hey man, it will be good for us long term. I'll come back one day I'll come back and I can say we did this. Where's your mind go with this shit?
I think it's simple as it's just acknowledging your friends. I mean, similar to Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels, one night on Nitro and one night on Raw, they're both too sweeting each other from across different television waves. I think it's just that just shows how, in wrestling, it's all sort of one for all, go and make your money. And it's one big family. And then we're all going to, we're all happy. You got friends in all different companies. People and fans want to believe in this tribalism thing. It just doesn't exist among the wrestlers. They're just out to make the most money possible and be able to function for their families and be able to do everything possible that's best for them in the moment. So I think everybody's just happy for Cody Rhodes, and I'm sure Cody Rhodes is happy for everybody in the Elite. It's just part of the game and it's part of the business at the end of the day. I just think it's one of those things where shouting out your friends, it's exactly like Shawn Michaels and Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, just across different companies.
I'm with you. I think I do think it's two groups of friends acknowledging one another. I think there's an added element here that wasn't with the Shawn Michaels, Scott Hall doing that. I think the added element is there's a little bit of Cody being like, we did it. You know what I mean? Like we built something together important enough for them to want me in this spot. And it wasn't just me that did it. We did it together. I think Cody is a very poetic, he thinks on a deeper level with things like that. And I do think that little moment of giving the too sweet and the gun, I think it was like, that was a tip of the cap to his buddies across, in the other company saying, hey, if it wasn't for what we did, I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, and think about the path of Cody Rhodes too. And if you want to wax poetic about it and use sort of euphemisms to talk about it, think about when he's wrestling in a gym in New Jersey and building up towards this moment, all the time in between, all the hard work that happened, all the different things that had to happen to get him there and rebuild his image. So, I know lost in all of this is like, it's so predictably won, but lost in this is the image enough that he took what was a tarnished image leaving WWE with the Stardust gimmick. He rebuilt himself, not in a big company. They built the company to rebuild himself across the independents. And his brand became, he says it's undesirable to undeniable. And that's what it truly is. And at this point, it's kind of surreal. And you can't help but be happy for the guy. I know there's people out there that don't like Cody Rhodes, but you can't really knock any of the drive and the passion he has for this business, because it's so evident on every time he's out on your screen.
100%. The guy exudes a passion for the business. He honors his father's legacy, and that too sweet definitely, there's something there, man. Like you said, this isn't him contract ending, or this isn't him coming back from the indies and going right back into the gimmick he had. This is him coming into the largest wrestling promotion in the world as a gimmick he himself created. He's not coming back as dashing Cody Rhodes. He's not coming back as Stardust. He's coming back as the American Nightmare that did not exist in WWE. That too sweet to me. That's what that meant. And I'm so excited for this ride, man. I know a lot of people, kind of poo-pooed. We wanted Sami and all of that, but just stepping back from it, I think there's something special that could be made here. And I think this could be a monumental match. When you look at Mania matches, you think Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, you think Rock Hogan, you think these big, larger than life, top of the card prize fights. And I think this fits that bill for me. And if they properly build it, but there's something here that gets me excited.
Yeah, and I think before we move on, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the LA crowd reacts, especially a WrestleMania crowd that has a lot of traveling fans, smart fans out there that are going to react the same way. And there's been all this great praise thrown on Roman, and well-deserved. So are people going to sit there and boo Roman? I know that he got the heat he deserved at Royal Rumble, and he's been a dastardly heel, more so than he's been evil. Truly, that character is transcending. People talk about Sami Zayn's work and all that, but Roman's on the equal counterpart of that. He's just as he's the best heel we've seen. It's some of the best heel work we've seen. The facial expressions, the understanding of where to stand in so many moments too. And there was a moment too, just to show the understanding of Roman Reigns and his how much he's grown in the ring. Kevin Owens botched that. I think it was the springboard split-legged moonsault.
And he rolled in front of him.
He rolled in front of it to make it look less egregious. And it's just little things like that Roman's just operating on a different level. So it's the perfect mix, man. And WWE's in good hands if they're able to, push all these guys appropriately and give them the appropriate spotlight. Because it's not all about the championship belt. They can make a transcendent star and keep a transcendent star without the championship belt and Sami Zayn. It's just a matter of how they end this.
Absolutely. I'll save all of my superlatives for the Bloodline and Roman for our topic number 3, but you want to get into topic number 2?
Let's do it.
Big story number 2.
So we have, of course, Mark Briscoe was honoring Jay, his brother, on Dynamite. Great match with Jay Lethal. Feels like a lifetime ago at this point, but a beautiful tribute, man. This seemed like it was never going to happen with the Briscoes on TV. Unfortunately, we only get Mark. Really one of the highlights to me, obviously the match was emotional from start to finish, and seeing the guys be able to work through this and how professional and poised Mark was, and how tough a time that Jay Lethal had. And people handle grief in different ways, as we've discussed, but the commentary team was so excellent, paying homage to their past and their history, and just so poetic. And it just shows what a medium pro wrestling can be to help tell a story and not use any words. These guys, it was a perfect honor to Jay Briscoe, and I don't want to speak for them and their family, but how could you honor him in a better way than going out there and main eventing a Dynamite in a place that they said you'd never be? It was just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, these are the moments in pro wrestling that make pro wrestling kind of transcend just in-ring storytelling. You know what I mean? Like when you have tragedy or things like that, no one wants that to happen, but the way the pro wrestling world and the pro wrestling community honor their fallen and bring them in, you know, in other sports you can't really do this. You know what I mean? Like Damar Hamlin, you're not going to have his brother come out and it's you have these moments that are so specific to this medium that make it so special that the only way, like the highest possible way to honor a fallen brother is to go wrestle a match. And all of the behind the scenes stuff of Warner Brothers Discovery not allowing the Briscoes, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, I think on that Tuesday, Tony Khan tweets out that Mark's going to be on the show. I mean, it was an absolute like rejoicing on social media from wrestling fans. And then to see them come out the way the commentary handled it, to see Jay Lethal so beside himself. And we talked about this on the flagship. Like, there's a moment in that match when they're trading chops where I truly feel like Mark was like he had to slap him into the match. Like he knew that he was bothered by it. And Mark, all of his emotional release came after that. And it was just a beautiful moment, man. The guys coming out on the stage, the hugs shared for Mark. I moments like that are the moments that I feel like really stick with you. Like the Brody Lee Memorial Show. I'll never forget that show. So powerful because it's really imprinting on your emotions. And it's not just some throwaway angle that kind of washes over and you kind of remember it. Like these burn into your consciousness. And I loved it. Do you think Mark has a place, on future Dynamites? Do you think we'll see more of him on Dynamite?
I think so. I don't think on a consistent clip. I think we're definitely going to see him more, especially now that the go ahead is there. Of course, I think if there's the right opportunity and the right story to be told, but I think his place is Ring of Honor and they need people to build that brand around. And, I think we're going to see some Ring of Honor AEW crossover. And so that means we're probably going to see Mark Briscoe on a Dynamite. But yeah, I think he's more of an ROH guy, and that's not a bad thing. I think his legacy is there, and he's an important piece of what they're doing there because I think they really need him. And that's not just it's not a spot they're giving him. They need him for the show to mean something.
No, I think you're spot on with it. I think the place that makes most sense from an emotional standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a legacy standpoint, you're talking 22 years with Ring of Honor. Those guys were in that company from the beginning. They more so than anyone, more so than Samoa Joe, more so than Bryan Danielson, more so than CM Punk, any of those guys. When I think ROH, I think the Briscoes. I think Mark flying that flag for Jay. And we've said it before, but I really want to see Mark get that world title, man. I think you could put that guy as one of your top guys. And I'm excited to see Mark's career because he's came out, he had that Caprice Coleman talk to him and he's like, I'm not stopping. Now I'm here. What I do now is to honor Jay. So it's not like he's hanging up his boots and calling it a day. I feel like we might see a renaissance in this guy. We might see more fire and passion in honor of his fallen brother than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, let's not lose sight of the reason why this is happening is because Tony Khan fought super hard. And I think it's been made clear that Tony has a respect and understanding for the importance of doing things like this to not only the fans, but to the roster that's in that locker room, because there's so many guys that were hurting from this. And it meant so much to have Mark Briscoe go out there and be honored, because that's the only way some of these guys know how to honor people is to go out there and wrestle. So, I mean, we had Tony Khan coming on the Battleground podcast. He talked about fighting really hard to get the match approved. He said that both Briscoe and Lethal called him, requested the match specifically. Took place on Jay Briscoe's 39th birthday. You want to talk about poetic? That is beyond poetic. The Briscoe brothers haven't been allowed to appear on AEW television. As we all know, the story's there, and it was revealed, obviously had to do with the tweet, but it also had to do with some of the Confederate attire they were wearing. But Tuesday morning, I guess WBD reversed their decision right before Dynamite. And we heard Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, and everyone's ripping on Meltzer for saying that it wasn't going to happen. But he's only operating on what everybody else was understanding. If you would have asked Tony Khan that same exact time, he would have said it wasn't happening either. It's just one of those things that just you kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's not just Tony Khan was pushing, the fans were too. If you look at any of those Warner Brothers posts, no matter what they posted, people were saying that they were lower than low, that how could you not let them honor Jay Briscoe? And people listened. And I think they made it through. And I think that some of the comparison that was being made, like we made here, the J.K. Rowling thing, you're playing Harry Potter movies, and also you have the slap, Dana White stuff going on. I mean, you can't paint with different brushes. You have to understand you're being looked at on a grander stage. It's pro wrestling, but the fans are passionate about what we're watching.
Yeah, and the Confederate stuff, I mean, I get it, today's day and age, but it's a character, man. These guys are supposed to be wild backwoods chicken farmers. Like,
or just tell the Jews not to wear it, though. You know what I mean? Like, right, I'm sure they would have been like, fine, we won't wear it. Like, I don't
exactly. It's not a big deal. Look at Bully Ray. Dude used to wear a rebel flag do-rag. Like, is WWE banning him from coming on there? Is NBC Universal banning him from that? Like, I get it, man. I totally get it. But at the same time, like you said, I hate this like selective recreational outrage. Like, we're going to get mad at this, but we have this douchebag working for us. We're going to look over that because he makes money. I get hot about that. I don't know, man. It's the way of the world, though.
Not to mention, too, if I'm watching 1998 WWF, there's so much that's happening on TV, and you got people that are wearing black on their face, and you got people that are dressing in certain ways and saying certain things, people that are well accepted now. And I'm not sitting here trying to get people in trouble for that stuff, but that's happened in the past. Guys, even like Triple H, who's at the head of the company, it's not AEW, but it's also WWE. He said some shit and done some stuff on TV. It was in character, but I mean, where's the line drawn?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion, like, I don't condone certain things, but at the same time, it's like, I don't like looking at the past and looking at past transgressions through modern eyes. It's a different, I know it's stupid to say it was a different time, but it truly was.
Yeah.
Look at the Chappelle Show. Look at some of the things being said. Would never happen today. But I'm not going to judge that show by today's standards because it truly was like standards were different. TV standards were different. So it's like we learn from it, we improve, we move on. But diving into the past and holding people accountable for the things they did during a time that didn't have the kind of regulations that we have today or the social qualms that we have today. I don't know. Just the past is the past. Let it be. People improve, allow them to improve. We talked about this, but, and the whole, I got to touch on the whole Dave Meltzer thing you talked about, how everyone was shitting on Dave for getting it wrong. It's like, dude, that day, I heard Tony Khan on Busted Open that day. It was the day after Meltzer had reported that. And he said it came down to the wire. Because I think Dave on Monday reported that it wasn't going to happen. It was totally off the table. And then Wednesday on Busted Open, Tony Khan was like, I literally fought all week and it just came down yesterday. So it's such a lazy hack opinion to have of just to go after Dave Meltzer. Like, there's so many shitty, awful wrestling journalists that have no sources who just report whatever they want. I think of Zero News and Ringside News and all of these just shit sites. And then a guy who actually has inroads in companies, you're going to tear apart every little thing he does. It makes me hot.
But it's also, I mean, people don't even listen to what he said. They just saw that he said it. But if you listen to the quote, he said it could change. He said it multiple times. It could
Yeah.
change. And guess what? It did change. I know that's like, hedging your bets and all that, but he's reporting the news he has at the current time. And sometimes news does change. Obviously, the situation changed and for the better. I mean, obviously, everybody was happy Mark was allowed on Dynamite. That's not what the story was about. The story truly was about that we got what we wanted. We were able to have that magical moment. And this will live forever, man. This will live forever in wrestling fans' minds. The clips are, everything about it was magical. They made a really good thing out of a really bad situation.
Yeah. In closing for me, I know I think you mentioned it earlier, but I have to reiterate, hats off to Tony Khan.
Yeah.
Hats off to Tony Khan for fighting for this. Other people would have not tried to push buttons with their broadcast partner. But the dude pushed and pushed because he believed it, and his roster, who knew those guys, wanted it, and he knew they wanted it, and the fans wanted it, and he fought for it. Not many promoters, man, would put that fight up. He gave us an incredible ceremony for Brody Lee, and then he had to fight to give us an incredible ceremony for Jay Briscoe. And people like to trash on Tony Khan. Oh, he hugs everybody. Oh, he's a money mark, whatever. I don't know, man. I see stuff like this, and this is what makes me a fan of Tony Khan.
Not to mention, too, yesterday marked the exact day that they passed the existence of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So AEW has outlasted Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Just putting out that.
Yeah, there you go, Jim Cornette. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yep. Let's get to our third story, man. This is like this. Any of these stories could have been number one.
I know. Story number 3.
So Sami Zayn finally made his choice, and what a magical moment. We mentioned at the Royal Rumble, everybody was talking about this rather than the 2 Rumble winners. So he had to choose, man, Roman Reigns or Kevin Owens, and he chose Kevin Owens despite all their history. He sat there and couldn't stand idly by while Kevin Owens was destroyed, and they just continued to beat on him. But, I mean, the Royal Rumble, the end of it is you want to speak about magical moments in cinema. This story that's being told in WWE is, I know it's recency bias and it's hyperbole, but you have people that are watching this that are comparing it to some of the best stories in WWE history. Just the emotion they're eliciting from the live audience, from the TV, just from everything going on with all the little nuances. If you follow this story for the past 4 years and see where they've gone, when it started with Jay and Roman and then it expanded to where they are now, it's just perfection, man. It's just to see that moment where Zayn cocked the chair back and gets ready to hit Roman. And it was very similar to when Seth hit Roman with the shield, but the way he fell was like that couldn't have been accidental. You could just tell that the audience was a powder keg. You could tell that they were ready for the moment. And when it happened, they exploded. And that's when wrestling's at its absolute best, where fans are reacting the way you want them to react. And the fuck you Roman chants, that just doesn't happen by accident. People don't want to chant that unless they're feeling very, very positive about how they feel about him, or negative, I should say, positively negative. They felt very, very strongly that Roman Reigns wronged this guy, Sami Zayn, because the characters were more than just characters. They felt like real people to us.
And you don't get an FU chant at a WWE show. That just never happens, man. It's not the 90s. Like, so for them for the emotion they pulled to elicit a response like that, we're not in Philly. We're not in Chicago. We were in San Antonio, and hats off to Texas. They have great crowds, but it's not like San Antonio is like an insider diehard Mark crowd. For them to pull, and I know like a lot of people are traveling, it's the Royal Rumble, but what a pop when Sami cracked Roman with that chair. For me, man, I know I'm kind of tipping my cap a little bit because tomorrow we are recording a debate, and one of the debate questions, teaser for everyone, one of the debate questions is this one of the greatest booked stories in pro wrestling history? The Bloodline story. So we'll get into that. But the thing that makes this special, this story truly special for me, is the mechanics of it. Is the not so much like the kayfabe story they're telling, but the execution of how they're doing it is phenomenal. From I'm talking about the acting. I'm talking about the camera shots. I'm talking about the blocking, knowing where to be, when to be. Every little shot they had set up, it was so expertly done. There was no like slip ups. It was so clean just from a straight production storytelling standpoint. Paul Heyman, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Solo has really came into something special.
Oh yeah.
Sammy, Roman, everyone is totally in this story. Like when I watch these guys, I buy in because they are bought in. Like I'm not seeing any like make believe shit. I'm totally bought in. Hats off to Roman, man. I was a big critic of that guy in like 2016, 2017, 2018. Did not like him. And honestly, like to see the trajectory he's been on, it just keeps getting better and better. And I feel like the Rumble moment was so important to Roman Reigns because he was getting dangerously close in certain aspects of this story to becoming that cool heel. Everyone putting their fingers up, everyone liking him. And I feel like this is one of those things that this story needed to cement him as a true bona fide hated heel, especially going in against a big time babyface like Cody Rhodes. They've really set the table in this story for something special. I hope everything lands right. I hope, and I'm hopeful because they've landed everything correctly thus far, but I hope they've got a lot of weird stuff on the table right now that I'm kind of leery of, especially with Jay walking out. Their tag champs are not together. So to see how they maneuver where we're left at right now is going to be very intriguing moving forward.
Yeah, and I think how a story is judged is how it ends because right now it's been so great, but if it ends in a really bad way, people are going to remember that in a negative light. I trust the process at this point. Everything they've touched with this storyline, whoever's booking it, whether it's Paul Heyman's genius being in the oversight and the guys involved, like you said, they're all bought into the fact that this is more than just a one-off story. It's so intertwined with both shows. It's on everything. That's why it was so weird that it wasn't involved in the Rumble at all. And I guess maybe it's a testament to how great it is. They didn't want to sully it with the Rumble. They want to make sure it stands on its own. And maybe that's the right decision at the end. But this story just feels like it's standing head and shoulders above every other aspect of wrestling. And you guys know I love wrestling of all kinds. I'm more of an AEW guy than a WWE guy right now. But there's really no story in wrestling that you can point to right now that's anywhere close to this and how organic it feels. And just you want to watch the show to see where it goes next. And I always look at storylines to have benchmarks of really important moments. Like you look at Vince and Austin with their rivalry throughout time, you can pinpoint moments in time where, whether it be Vince, Austin's in the corner, or you can pinpoint the beer shower. This storyline right here, you have, first of all, trial of Sami Zayn. You have the War Games moment. You have this moment here with him dropping the lei on top of him with all the flowers with them laid out. It's made in pictures, videos, clips. It speaks to what wrestling can be if booked correctly. And if you want someone that doesn't watch wrestling to enjoy wrestling, show them, a 12-minute compilation video of promo packages with this compiled. It's magic.
I mean, go back to the early beginning when the Wild Samoans kind of tipped their cap and gave the respect to Roman. Like this has been, I am 100% all about AEW. I try not to be tribalistic. I love good wrestling, no matter the brand, but I definitely lean more. I get more excited for Wednesdays than Mondays or Fridays. I just do. But there's no story in pro wrestling that is so long-term, expertly executed, ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys. I don't know who's behind this. Obviously, we have no idea the inner workings of the booking of this. But to me, it has Paul Heyman's hands all over it. Like, it just does.
And there's so many moments that they could have fell off, and it was perfectly executed, bringing Sami into the fold and understanding that it rejuvenated it. Now this also has another layer of the storytelling. And even past when Roman loses the title, it's potential to continue to go on from here. This story really can just, I mean, you got guys that are in the bloodline that aren't even in the pipeline of roster yet. So this can continue for years and years. So that's the exciting part. If done correctly, they can really tap into it. So that's the best part. But let's talk about the recent right now. Elimination Chamber's next. It seems like a Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns program is clear for Elimination Chamber. I don't know if it's going to be in the chamber, but it looks like the championship's going to be on the line. I can't see them dropping Cody Rhodes in favor of Sami Zayn in any way possible. We've seen WrestleMania main events be changed retroactively in different ways. People added, people subtracted. I guess you could have, as Bellcaster's been saying, having Roman defend both nights. I've been a critic of that. I don't think Roman should be pinned before he gets pinned by anybody. I think it takes away from both guys. Say if Sami beats him and then also
it
Cody beats him, it takes away. Unless you're going to have Sami lose in the first night, which is possible, and then Cody wins the next night. But then people are going to say he was worn down by Sami. So I think it's a lose-lose situation in that way. But yeah,
it came out that the Elimination Chamber is going to be for the United States title.
Oh, so they're just a one-on-one match for the Universal Championship.
It's weird because all the promotional material has Sami inside the chamber thing. So I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know are we getting like Jay and some of the other Bloodline members in there? Like, I'm sure if it's US title, we're going to get Theory, we're going to get Lashley, we're going to get Lesnar. Like they're kind of tied up in that. So the whole chamber for the US title adds a wrinkle to it that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. You back? But yeah,
just got
I don't
right there.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to do with the chamber situation.
Yeah, I think the big thing to look at is the original plan seemed to be Sami and Kevin versus the Usos for the titles, but it seems like they pivoted from there because Jay plays a huge part of this. So I know that he's on the promotional stuff in the chamber. It doesn't have to be the case. I think maybe it's just for the title and it happens to be at the event. It's just symbolic of the situation that Sami's in. He's locked in there. So I don't think they're stuck on having to have Sami in a pod for an actual match. WWE card subject to change. I don't think that's the case. They're not always going to have the promotional lineup to what they are doing in the ring.
And hats off to WWE right now because this story's told so well that you're totally enthralled in it, but you don't know where they're going with it. That's great storytelling. Like they have all of these possibilities and all of these avenues they could go down, but we have no idea. It's not extremely telegraphed. It's not extremely predictable. So that's the best kind of storytelling. There's a lot of pieces here. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Jay and Jimmy, that's a situation. Jay and Roman, that's a situation. Sami and Roman, that's a situation. There's so many things on the table right now. Kevin Owens is still a part of this. Like he's playing in this. Also, now there's Cody Rhodes. When does he become involved? Like it's very, very, I keep saying the word, but it's so intriguing to me because I don't know where they're going, but they've done so well so far that I'm trusting the process.
Yeah. And the last part of this right now is Jey Uso, as we mentioned, shared an image on Instagram where he said, let's run it back. So obviously we know the historic feud. This is what really started the bloodline. Roman beat Jay into submission, into joining the bloodline. Jay being one of the biggest critics of what Roman was doing, that it took that Hell in a Cell match for him to join, and all of a sudden he was beaten down to the point where now he's loyal. I don't know. Now we see where that's going. Maybe he is back with Roman. Maybe he's going to side with Sami. Whatever the right decision is, that's on them to decide, and it's not an admirable position to be in because it's a hard decision to make because at any moment this story can go sideways and people will be critical because at this point, all eyes on this. Everyone is looking at this with a very critical eye because of how good it's been.
Yeah, the wrestling world is zeroed in on this. You know, Jay and Roman had that Hell in a Cell match. Incredible. So I don't know, man. I almost don't want to fantasy, but it's hard to fantasy book this. I'm just kind of enjoying the ride.
As we should, but let's get into quick hitters and talk about all the other stuff we got going on in the wrestling world.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so quick hitters. First things first, we talked about the men's Royal Rumble, but the women's Royal Rumble happened as well. Rhea Ripley is the 2023 winner. She won from number one. So she's the first woman to ever win from number one. She went the distance. Liv Morgan also went the distance. She was number two. They were part of the final three with Asuka. Rhea got the win. Another one that seemed predictable. Everyone expected Rhea to win, but I think it was the right decision. What they've been doing with Rhea has been awesome. She's been the Judgment Day stuff, that's a conversation for another time, but they've really turned that around. But Rhea was a big part of it.
Yeah, it was very predictable. I mean, it was a predictable Mania, but that's, like I said, it's not always a bad thing. The one thing I wish they wouldn't have leaned so heavy into the number one, because they had Gunther kind of doing the Iron Man run, which they
both broke the record, which was a little like took away from each other.
Right. It was like both booking the same way in both matches with the number one featuring. So it's almost became kind of hack to me to feature that number one spot, because it used to be such a kind of hard spot to be in early on, but now it's almost like a kind of a predictable spot. If you're number one, there's a chance you could be there at the end. So I think they need to get away from that in future Rumbles, because it's becoming not good predictable,
100%. We'll talk a little bit more about the Women's Royal Rumble and the surprises in there in a little bit, but let's get to Seth Rollins on a potential CM Punk WWE return. He made some headlines prior to the event even going on the air. So they were doing a WWE 2K23 event prior to the Royal Rumble in San Antonio. Rollins was asked about some free agents and whether he would like to see them back. He was asked about CM Punk, and a very familiar face was next to him, Nick Hausman. We can talk about that guy, about opinions on him. But I guess let's show the clip of what Seth Rollins said.
I don't know with CM Punk, but you guys have had some barn burners in WWE. Would you like to see Phil Brooks back in WWE?
Oh, Philly Phil, stay away. Stay away, you cancer. Get away from me forever.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I don't like Phil. He's a jerk. Oh, did we just figure that out? No, everybody in the room is like, oh no, dude, did he say that? Yeah, no, he's a jerk. Come on, we figured it out over there. We knew it over here. I don't want him back. Go do something else. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So good.
Oh, man.
Rob Zombie, Michael Hayes energy if they had a baby right there.
Yeah, dude. The cowboy hat, the bleach blonde hair. I was digging it.
Thoughts on this? Obviously, Seth Rollins can always lean on he's playing a character, but I thought this was more Colby Lopez than Seth Rollins speaking about CM Punk, because he spoke pretty passionately about FTR. That wasn't included in the clip, but he was open to their return. That clip isn't really going around circle because it doesn't make the headlines like CM Punk does, but I felt like it was pretty genuine on his end.
Yeah, he definitely put FTR over as good guys, and a part of me, I get it grabs headlines, but there's genuineness to it. I don't know their history, but there is always a part of me. It's like, man, that's what you do if you want a match against CM Punk. You know what I mean? Like you want to get him over here. That's what you do. You shit on him. You set that match up. It's like when Undertaker showed up at Brock Lesnar's UFC fight. Brock Lesnar just got knocked out. He's leaving the octagon. He's going through the crowd. Undertaker's there. The cameras are there. He gets up in Lesnar's face and says, "You want to do this?" And everyone was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Come to find out, they were both in on it. It was a whole ploy to get Brock back in WWE and set up some match down the line. And then Lesnar ends up defeating the streak. So it's very hard for me to say it's completely genuine, because I think wrestlers operate on another level when it comes to just working fans. But I love Seth Rollins, man. People want to hate on it. The tribalists want to hate on Rollins because he's WWE, but people forget, dude, this is an ROH indie guy. He still has those indie roots. And the fact that someone not made by the PC has gotten as far as Roman is a PC guy. He's a performance center guy. Tyler Black was dominating the independents. So for a guy to be that high up in that company, to come from where he came, I love it. I love that he went in on Punk. It was so good. Such a good way to grab headlines. And if it's genuine, complete shoot, awesome.
I mean, my pushback to you is that in the wrestling landscape, of course, that is just par for the course. But it seems like history has shown CM Punk is unable to handle comments like that. And that's why he lashed out the way he did at Hangman, because of comments. So I would have a hard time believing, after all this is said and done, that CM Punk would be okay with someone saying that about playing ball. But who knows? Like, if tonight this whole thing is a giant work, Nick Hausman's the guy doing the interviewing, and then it winds up being Seth Rollins saying what he said.
Yeah, Nick Hausman, guy's a troll for Punk, man. He loves to just stoke it.
He's the guy that got ripped on by Punk and then decides to, I'm not actually friends with Colt. And then he's Punk's source. Like, could you be more of a cuck? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm not. I've heard things from our fellow brethren at the tavern about that guy. So I'm not big on that guy. I feel like
I
he
don't
just
know
likes
anything
to
about him
stir
aside
shit.
from this bullshit, but I definitely am not a fan of him based on this. Anyone that's a bootlicker for any person, no thank you.
Yeah, not in on it.
All right, let's go to the next story here. New Japan Pro Wrestling announces Strong on Demand. They're rebranding all their U.S. live events. They've been hyping an announcement over the course of the last couple weeks. This drop. All future United States shows will now be under the New Japan Strong live banner. So people have been questioning what's going on with Strong. We don't know exactly what's going to be happening with the weekly TV content. But the first Strong live branding will be February 18th, Battle in the Valley in San Jose, California. This will be all on the New Japan World app. So it seems like they're going to have two distinct types of brands. If they're happening across in the United States, it's going to be this New Japan Strong type of environment. So we're going to get some TV stuff going on, but they're moving away from the original format. So if you were a fan of what they were doing on Strong, it's going to look a little different for here. But they're going to be competing at WrestleMania weekend, it looks like, but in DC and Philly, but running on the same weekend with Collision and Capital Collision. So I don't know, definitely going to look different for them.
Yeah, and smart for them to get Mercedes Moné on that first show, Battle in the Valley. I mean, that's a great way to kind of kick your American brand off with Strong, because she's on that card, right? Isn't that her first match under New Japan?
She's wrestling Kyrie at that event. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, the next one over here. Wednesday night's AEW Dynamite averaged over 1 million viewers on TBS. It was up 3.5% from last week. It's the best audience since October 5th. In the 18 to 49 demo, Dynamite finished third on cable charts, trailing only the NBA games on ESPN. So all big numbers, especially as they get and trend towards a potential television deal. We've heard the TV executives say how proud they are of AEW as a product. There wasn't really a worry about them not getting picked up again, but this was huge. I know people look at the ratings and don't really buy that much into them, but anytime you break over 1 million, anytime you're competing with the NBA or the NFL, I mean, you're in good company.
Yeah, and I just got to say, shows you the power of the Briscoes, man.
True.
People knew we were going to celebrate Jay Briscoe's life. They tuned in for it.
MLW and WWE, it's a feud that never ends. They sent another cease and desist letter to WWE over their plans for Raw 30. So Dave Meltzer was behind this, talking about how WWE tried to reach out to some of MLW's contracted talent about appearing on Raw. Who exactly WWE reached out to? Uncertain, but we can all make our assumption on who it would be. You and I discussed this on probably the first Wrestling Tonight, from the family. So why wouldn't he be on the Bloodline segment?
Jacob Fatu. I feel like they were going after Jacob Fatu. What a talent. One of my favorite talent in MLW. So stay away. MLW and WWE, man, they are just like constantly in legal battle.
It all started with the War Games stuff because they
Yeah.
let the trademark for War Games disappear, believe it or not, after WCW went under. MLW took it for a bit, and then WWE bought it back for them, and there's been lawsuits ever since. So a lot of history and derision between the two of them. But speaking of MLW, their star and former member of the Dynasty of MJF's faction gives an update on his cancer diagnosis. So I'll let you lead the way on this one. You put it in the notes, but I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, Richard Holiday, we've had him on Visits the Tavern. Great talent. So the Dynasty, for those not really familiar with MLW, the Dynasty was MJF, Richard Holiday, and Alex Hammerstone. Great talents. Richard Holiday, very comparable to MJF in a lot of ways. They called him the AirPod God. He always has his AirPods in character. But he was recently diagnosed with cancer. Tragic news for him. But he comes out and says, I don't know exactly when I'll be able to get back in the ring or when I'll be able to enter that world of professional wrestling, which I miss so dearly. It's my life. It's my life's work. It's my absolute passion. Until that day comes, I miss you guys. This is by no means a goodbye. This isn't a see you later. In my opinion, this is a see you soon. And I can't wait for that day. I'll leave you with this. When you're breathing rarefied air, you fight. So that was his gimmick, rarefied air. Richard Holiday, I thought he was someone that, Impact or AEW would scoop up. I know MJF has spoke highly of him, but he ended up re-signing with MLW. But all the best to Richard Holiday. I hope he fights and beats this thing.
Absolutely, man. So we'll keep you updated on that through Wrestling Tonight. There was battle. Another MLW news in here if you want to carry the load on that one as well.
Yeah, the Judge, EJ Naduka, debuted on AEW Dark tapings. Now, this is he faced Takeshita in a match on Dark, and it's going to air very soon on YouTube. But this is a guy who was signed to WWE in 2019. He was signed to the Performance Center, and then when all of those mass layoffs happened, about 2 years later, I think 2021, he got released, went to MLW, held the tag team titles with Calvin Tankman, who I'm big on. I love Calvin Tankman. He decided to test free agency. Now he's popping up in AEW, but this is a young, hot talent. WWE had their eyes on him, signed him, scooped him up. He's kind of bounced around, so he's somebody to keep an eye on.
We're also keeping our eye on the announced situation on SmackDown. Pat McAfee made his return to the WWE broadcast booth, and according to PW Insider, it was an absolute legitimate surprise to the production team, and especially Cole and Graves. You could tell the reaction was pretty genuine. That's the most emotion we've seen from Michael Cole in ever. Like, I've never seen him react that way. He was super pumped. You can even see the production team was scrambling to even get him a chair, headphones. It was very on the fly. McAfee was a big part of the production on SmackDown for a while, bringing up a different flair. He's definitely marches to beat his own drum. If you like him, you like him. If you don't, you don't. But you can't deny that he is entertaining. McAfee hasn't been on TV since September. He's been on ESPN College's Game Day. So since that's been over, obviously he's freed up, and now he's returning to the Game Day desk. So he signed a multi-year extension in July 2022. We're going to see if he's going to be on maybe just special events. He's going to be on SmackDown every week. We don't know, but he was a breath of fresh air for that announcing but the one thing I want to say, you could tell he wasn't keeping up with the product because he was surprised by people that were coming in, didn't know the storylines, didn't know there's name changes. He couldn't accept that Piper Niven wasn't Dewdrop anymore. He kept on saying it and was like confused. So yeah, Pat McAfee's genuine as genuine comes though.
Yeah. And he is wrapped up in football, man. In the fall, he's not watching wrestling. He'll probably tune in here and there, but he's so wrapped up in college NFL with the Pat McAfee show. Good show. I consistently listen to it. I like Pat. I love what Pat has brought out of Michael Cole. I am not a Michael Cole fan, but Michael Cole is doing some of the best stuff he's ever done when Pat is beside him.
100%. And Rey Mysterio was supposed to be in the Rumble, and he didn't come out. Everyone's been asking, like, is he going to have the Curtis Axel gimmick? He never came out, never was eliminated. On the moment, they had Dominic carrying his mask, but Meltzer was asked about it on Wrestling Observer Radio the day after, and he said Mysterio was injured last night in Laredo at the SmackDown tapings in a match with Karrion Kross. He was supposed to be in the Rumble, and the spot was supposed to be Him and Dominic were supposed to tease a lot to their WrestleMania match. It never happened. So Ray's legitimately injured, wasn't in the match for that reason. Surprising they didn't put somebody else in that spot. There's other guys that weren't there. They might as well have put the aforementioned Braun Breaker, or someone else would have the opportunity if you knew Ray was hurt.
Yeah, I hate when they do shit like this because it sets up my expectations that they're setting up an angle like, oh, someone's going to come in for Ray, and then they didn't do anything with it. So I thought that was I get he's injured, but there was a better way to handle that. I thought that was a miss in the men's Rumble.
We also had Charlotte Flair. She was out for a while. She revealed that dental surgeries were the reason why she was out. So she had a really long and pretty quality interview in the New York Post, and she had dental surgeries. Didn't really clarify, but it says that there's been dental issues that have been bothering her since childhood, and she had no choice but to get them done. Who knows? But that, she wants to explain her absence away, and I'm happy to have her back. She's been sorely missed for the women's division.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. There's kind of this contingent of fans that do not like Charlotte Flair. I love Charlotte. I've always loved Charlotte. I think she's a special talent, so I'm happy to have her back, and her grill's all fixed up. Even better.
I'm surprised she didn't come back with the Roman teeth, man. The dentures. Just,
yeah, the chiclet teeth.
Yeah, you got the what's the dog's name from The Simpsons? Like the dog. You got those teeth.
Yeah.
Bellcast, if you're out there, you know the name of the dog. I can't think of his name right now. But we have backstage news on the updated WrestleMania card. So Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated always has his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the backstage area. Updated card right now. Seems like it's going to be Becky Lynch versus Bayley. There were seeds planted in the Women's Royal Rumble. It was reported months ago that Zayn versus Reigns was planned for Elimination Chamber. It seems like that's going to be happening. It's in Zayn's hometown of Montreal. And it seems like the plan as of right now, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the WWE Tag Team Champions, the Usos, is kind of wishy-washy. As we discussed during the Bloodline segment in the big story, we don't know exactly what's going on with that, and potentially that has been changed. But that begs the question, what are you doing with these guys in this storyline? It has to be meaningful. So what does that look like? And what's the pivot if it's not that tag team championship match? Because I don't think it's enough. I don't think that tag team championship is enough to justify where this storyline was going for all these characters.
No, that's a confusing little. I just can't see Jay. The way they handled Jay and Jimmy as champions has to be done correctly. And right now, I mean, prove me wrong, book me wrong, because I can't see Jay going back full throttle into the Usos and the Bloodline. I just can't right now.
Yeah, and we also had Rhea Ripley touched upon potentially who she's choosing. Not official yet, but that she did talk about Bianca Belair. So it seems like she's going to be challenging her in LA. We also had Cody Rhodes seems to be challenging Roman Reigns. I mean, who else would he challenge? Obviously, I guess you could choose any championship you wanted. But other rumored matches: Finn Balor and Edge, potentially to have a stipulation of some kind, potentially Hell in a Cell. That storyline calls for it. Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio, and Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul. All those seeds were planting in the Royal Rumble. And you know, if the function of the Royal Rumble is to get you on the road to WrestleMania, they did a good job of getting those at least started. It's a matter of where they go from here, but all the seeds were planted. I'm most excited for the Seth Rollins Logan Paul match because I think that could be an absolute steal the show, memorable match of the night.
I really could. As Logan Paul's impressed me, man. As much as it bums me out that a celebrity is in this spot, the kid's good. I mean, he crushes it every time. And him and Seth look like a great styles matchup. So I'm excited for that one too.
Yeah, and I just hope Seth has that moment where, and it's tough to say because Seth's been on the losing end of so many different feuds, but I don't know. I would hate to see him get the back burner in any sort of WrestleMania storyline. Even if he's going to lose to a guy like Logan Paul, I want him to have a meaningful spotlight. That's sort of, Seth Rollins has been the byproduct of this Roman Reigns story. He's gotten the back seat, and not deservedly so. He deserves to be at the top of the card. And I think at the moment, as we mentioned, all the momentum's behind the Bloodline. And it seems like Seth Rollins had to carve his own niche, and I think he's done a great job of that. But in a different world, a different time, he would be able to be the world champion. It's just right now Roman's running the course. It reminds me of the Knicks when Jordan was running rampant in the 90s. It's like they would be the champions one of these years, maybe, but you're not beating Jordan and the Bulls.
Yeah, poor Pat Ewing and John Starks never could get it done, man.
Charles Oakley still banned from MSG.
Yeah.
So we also have the Bellas talking about Raw 30. They were critical on Instagram Live, and they doubled down on Tamron Hall's talk show this week and explained why they were critical. And she said, she being Nikki, I think what anyone does when you have a love and passion for something, you put your heart and soul in it, you want to be appreciated. And I think that's in any industry. For us female wrestlers, it was Raw 30, the 30th anniversary. And throughout those 30 years, women have done a whole lot to make Raw what it is. So when you have a 3-hour show and it's male dominated and women aren't being honored pretty much at all, you just sit back and you're like, why aren't we being appreciated? This was like exasperated by the fact that they cut out the cage match for the women's match because of time constraints. It almost just emphasized what they were saying. So Bellas seem like they're on bad terms with WWE management, which is weird because they were once the golden eye of this women's division.
Yeah, it's strange. They've always been so company women for the company. You know, their stepdad, I guess, you know, Johnny Ace was in management, quote unquote. You had Danielson over there, but both of those guys are gone. So I don't think there's those allegiances to the company. The family isn't employed now. So they're calling it like they see it. You know, I could have done without that whole DX reunion. We just got that like a month or so ago for the DX reunion.
It's sad. Like, to me, that's a sad. I'm glad they didn't make Imperium put them over, but it's sad that I'm even sitting there thinking that they would bury them like they buried FTR all those years ago.
Yeah, I didn't need that again. We just got it.
Absolutely. So let's go to the next thing here. A visa issue has prevented Kenny Omega from appearing on AEW television this past couple of weeks. So we've heard some visa issues with some other guys, and Meltzer alluded to it potentially being a visa issue with somebody. But, you know, we didn't think it was Kenny Omega. We thought maybe it's the Lucha Brothers. But yeah, Canadian-born Kenny Omega hasn't appeared on AEW program since surprisingly January 11th. Everybody thought he was nursing the injuries from the ladder match, that he's just trying to get right and get ready for the next program. But right now it's literally a visa issue, so he can't get into the country. So it looks like he's going to be returning this Wednesday, but it's not a lock. So, you know, that's the other part about wrestling we don't really think about, the travel. Like, there's a lot of different moving parts that get people in and out. And Kenny Omega is getting locked up and not being able to go. And that must be so frustrating for everybody involved.
So was it confirmed? Is he trapped in Japan or Canada?
He's in Canada now, but he had tried to get from Japan to Canada back to the US. And I think something happened with the visa. The logistics don't make any sense to me because he's a world travel guy who makes his living traveling. So
right.
I guess they're just happy that it didn't happen on the day of the ladder match, because that would have sucked.
Yeah, that would have ruined it.
Yeah. So Triple H talked about in an interview on ESPN about why he changed Austin Theory's name back to Austin Theory from just Theory. And he did that with a few people's names, but most notably Theory was someone that needed it. So he said the US champion gave him a whole bunch of praise. Among other people were saying things about Theory. This was focusing on Theory as the future of wrestling. And the booking seemed weird following Vince leaving. And it seems like they're rehabilitating him in a big way now. He's feeling like, I like what they've been doing Theory in the last couple of weeks.
It feels like a legit guy.
Absolutely. And it took a bit to get there. And I was a little hesitant to think that maybe he didn't get a shot with Triple H under the helm, but they took away that Vince, whatever it is, stink or whatever the hell you want to call it, away from Austin Theory. Now he feels like he stands alone, and he's hanging tough in the mid card with a really important championship. As much as we talk about Gunther reestablishing the IC title as an important championship, they've done the same thing for the US title. I mean, the Austin Theory reign right now is just, it's been passed around. Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley. This championship has meant a lot, especially with the world title being tied up on one guy.
I think they've done a really good job of bringing the US title and the IC title back to some sort of prestige, because those belts meant nothing for a long time.
Yeah. So the original part about this question was, why did he give the name back? And Triple H said it's a little bit hard to just refer to him as Theory, Triple H said. And even to me, it was a little awkward when he was announced like Theory. It's weird. And he said, is that Stone Cold coming in? Is it confusing for fans? I'm of the opinion that if you don't know the difference between Austin Theory and Stone Cold Steve Austin, there's already a problem, right? So we're fixing the wrong end of the problem. I love that he's respecting wrestling fans. He's not assuming that, you had to appeal to these casual fans. There's diehards that are watching this. Even people that aren't diehards. No, it's not Stone Cold. Don't insult our intelligence. You can call him Austin Theory. That's what I love about AEW. There's multiple Brodies. There's multiple Cages.
Adam Page, Ethan Page.
It's their names. Like, let's just sometimes there's competitors and baseball teams, football players that have the same name. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Triple H isn't treating us like Vince did, which was we were so dumb. We couldn't follow along. Oh, 2 Austins? That's confusing. Come on, man.
We have Wardlow out with an undisclosed injury. You guys mentioned on the flagship, where has he been? He's involved in the Samoa Joe feud, but he got that. The last we saw of him, he got his head cut, well, the ponytail cut off the top of his head. Meltzer didn't give any specifics, but he said the injury is not believed to be serious. So hopefully he'll be back soon to reinvigorate maybe the feud for the TNT Championship. I don't know. Wardlow had a lot of momentum going on for a bit. He was undefeated in both singles and tag team matches. Up until Full Gear, where he lost the TNT title to Samoa Joe. He didn't really get pinned, though, because Powerhouse Hobbs got pinned. So we'll see what they do with Wardlow. They have a little bit of rehabilitation to do for his character.
I like Dave, but I still wouldn't be shocked if Wardlow came into play in this Darby Allin Samoa Joe match coming up.
100%. Yeah, but that might have been why he was out in the first place, though.
Yeah.
We have NWA has its first live NWA Power, which will be tomorrow, January 31st at 7 p.m. on the YouTube channel. So it'll be live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Got some great matches on here, headlined by Tyrus and Matt Cardona with a contract signing for their World Championship match on NWA Nuff Said, which takes place February 11th, which is around the corner, believe it or not. We also get a tables match between Bully Ray and Addison, the wedding and the Championship Series finals. Finally there. Team Tyrus versus Team Rock and Roll. It's a pretty stacked card, live NWA. Another option for wrestling fans to watch.
Yeah, and I think this is this contract signing between Tyrus and Matt Cardona. It's the first step towards Cardona taking that title back. Please, God, get the 10 pounds of gold off of Tyrus. I hated that move and that decision, but yeah, I hope they put it on Cardona. Cardona was bringing some eyes to the product. I think they need that.
We also have Sami Zayn was interviewed with Ariel Helwani. He said a lot of things, but most notably that's catching headlines is his conversation about Jay Briscoe. And he really spoke candidly about losing his friend. And the quote he had here, "I'll never wrestle him again, and that really sucks. That hurts." That's the closest thing to understanding the reality of the situation. It's not when I say I'll never see him again. It's when I really say I'll never get in the ring with him again that I feel the real application of what it is to be with him. So as we know, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens wrestled the Briscoes multiple times between 06 and 13 in Ring of Honor, PWG. Jay Briscoe and Zayn also worked several matches of singles together. So a lot of history, a lot of miles on the road together. And it's just sad to think about all these guys, the kinship. It just is another story we hear. And it's even more sad to hear Sami Zayn open up on this candid interview with Ariel.
Yeah, it's super sad. And I know Sammy was attending the Briscoes' funeral on Sunday in Laurel, Delaware. And if you go to, I believe, the Laurel School District YouTube channel, they had Jay's service live for anyone to be able to watch it. And there was a lot. I mean, Mark Briscoe, I watched some of his clips from there, telling some phenomenal stories, eulogizing his brother. But from everything I'm hearing, the turnout was absolutely incredible, with a who's who of everybody who's ever been affected and touched by Jay Briscoe.
And you alluded to it, the Jay Briscoe funeral service aired live on the YouTube channel. But most notably, Tony Khan hired a private jet so the people that knew Briscoe could attend the service. Another just, Tony Khan doing the right thing. This was something.
Yeah, I believe what happened was they had dark tapings in Universal that early that morning or late the night before. So Tony chartered a flight for everyone who wanted to go that knew Jay and just flew them out there. Incredible move.
So we also have some drama with AEW and Luchasaurus facing a lawsuit over merchandise rights to a wrestler's mask design. WrestleNomics reports that the mask designer CFX sued AEW and Luchasaurus in the United States District Court Eastern District in Louisiana in December 2022. Really focused on what's being called the Viper silicone mask and merchandising. I think there was an agreement in place for them to be able to use the mask on TV, but once they started selling replica masks at the merchandise stand and having likeness of it on T-shirts, that's where it became an issue. And I think they reached out to real name Austin Madelson, aka Luchasaurus, about potentially changing the mask. He said that it's too iconic to change, so there's been some jockeying back and forth about what to do with this. But it's clear that there is got to be a solution here. And that sucks for Luchasaurus. His identity's behind that mask. And maybe he has to go with something else. Does he not wear a mask? Does he change what it looks like? It's a tough call.
Yeah. I know it's very easy for some people to be like, oh, it's a money grab. This guy's an independent artist, man. This is how he makes his money. I get it. You got to get credit where credit is due. All the shows I've been to, I've never seen them sell replica masks. Now, if they're out there now, yeah, I think the guy should get a little piece of that. I mean, it's his creation. So,
yeah, I think maybe the issue was they were getting ready to sell them, and that might be played a part of them breaking up Jurassic Express. Who knows, man? Like that could have played a huge. This has been going on since they said the lawsuit started in December 2022 when they finally applicated it. But I'm sure this dude's been contacting them for a while since he's been on TV. It's like clearly his intellectual property.
Yeah, for him to take it to the level of I'm going to sue you, there was probably back and forth for a long, long time before it came to that.
Yeah, it's well past Instagram messages like, oh, can we work this out, please?
Right.
All right, so Hulk Hogan is said to have had surgery that led him to losing feeling in his lower body. So we found this out in a weird way from Kurt Angle's podcast, and he talked about Hogan's condition, and he said that he spoke with Hogan for about a half hour about their health and injuries backstage at Raw 30. He said Hogan recently had the nerves cut from his lower body, leading to mobility issues. So no returns for Hogan? I'm just joking.
Hogan, man, that leg drop really did him in.
Well, it depends on what the Saudi Arabia government's going to pay, but maybe Hogan can just like strap it on one more time to work,
one more
crown jewel, right?
Give us one more brother.
All right. So Triple H, speaking of bringing someone back, The Rock, he commented on, he was clearly asked on the press conference following Royal Rumble, and he said, I just don't think it's in the cards. So I think at this point we can assume it's not happening this year. Potentially WrestleMania 40 in Philly. I know we keep moving the goalposts a little bit for this, but it's just tough, man. Like, how could The Rock is worth so much money? How could someone that is paying a lot of money from to be in movies or TV production to allow him to go in the ring and risk whatever it be, filming and production time just by wrestling a match? I understand The Rock has the autonomy to do what he wants to do, and if that's what he's passionate about, but I don't know. What other thing does The Rock have to prove by being in the ring? I think his legacy speaks for itself. You don't have to do anything like that.
I'm with you. I do think, man, he would be the cherry on top of this Bloodline. I mean, the Bloodline story with him coming in to truly challenge it, man, that would be special. But I really think, like, guys, let it go. The Rock has too much going on. He has too much money on the line. He has his hands in too many pots. Terramana, all of the films, XFL, all of the TV shows. Guy is beyond busy with his production company. I think The Rock, most people leave the pro wrestling business, the guys who get famous, and they never look back and they kind of side eye at their past with pro wrestling. I think The Rock honors it. I think he loves his time in the business. I just think he's bigger than the business now. I think he's off doing bigger things, and it's hard to chalk out that time to truly put the effort in to come back for a match and not sully your reputation. And I think that's a big thing for The Rock. He doesn't want to come back and just phone it in and look like shit. And I respect that for the guy. Like, if he doesn't have the time to get to the point that he feels he needs to be at for a big match, stay away. I don't want to see you come back half cocked. And the sad thing is, man, we keep saying next Mania. Like, the window is closing on this. I think if we don't get it in the next year or two, I think we just need to completely give up and move on.
Agreed, man. But it didn't stop me from thinking that potentially when Sammy's being laid out, being beat up, that you get the if you smell. Can you imagine what
dude? I thought it was happening. I thought that was when he was. I'm not saying
it would be the best part for the story, but I couldn't help but being like, that's what they're doing, and the pop is going to be immense, and like just for creating moments.
Oh,
I don't know if it helps the story, but The Rock would have been epic there.
Me and Sneed were sitting watching it, and we were both going, if you smell, like the roof would have blew if that would have happened, but no dice.
So we also had Nia Jax and Chelsea Green returning at the WWE Royal Rumble event. So Jax and Green were both surprise entrants. Nia Jax is obviously a polarizing figure, to say the least, between WWE fans. Chelsea Green got eliminated quickly. Nia Jax lasted a bit, got eliminated by the eventual winner, Rhea Ripley. So both are back in the company. And Chelsea, I'm happy about. Nia Jax, I could take her, leave her. I don't think she adds or detracts anything from the roster. I mean, she's, I guess, a good piece, but I don't want to see her involved in big matches. And if that's what they're doing, get rid of her.
You're being too nice, Ace. She's a liability. They got rid of her.
Yeah.
They got rid of her because they should have gotten rid of her, because she was hurting a lot of people. And when they bring her back in, if this is a full-time contract and she's back in the fold, man, that worries me, because I just don't see a commitment to pro wrestling from her. I can see it the way she moves in the ring, everything. Like I think she's a liability.
You want to talk about a bad storyline added to the bloodline, adding her to the mix? That picture they have is like,
keep her away.
Agreed. So finally here in the quick hitters, Piper Niven also returned to the Dewdrop gimmick. As I mentioned, McAfee couldn't let it go. She was eliminated by Raquel Rodriguez, but most notably, she's been out of the ring since September with that health scare. I think she was out sick with COVID. They were really concerned with her heart rate. So I'm glad to see she's healthy enough to be in the ring. And Piper Niven, with that name, that was a pretty formidable character she had created on her own. And she threw that all away to be Dewdrop. So I'm hoping that they have a more serious edge to her, like she had before she was in WWE.
Yeah, I'm happy she's got the moniker back, Piper Niven, because I was a huge fan of her in the matches she was putting on in NXT UK. When they gave her that Dewdrop thing, that was such a slap in the face for me. She's a killer in-ring performer. If handled with a little bit of seriousness, man, she could be a true monster in that division.
Let's go to the results quick on Dynamite from the 25th. Darby Allin defeated Buddy Matthews. Bryan Danielson defeated Brian Cage, and Mark Briscoe, as we discussed before, defeated Jay Lethal. So that was Darby Allin's fourth successful title defense in 4 weeks.
He is on a run right now.
And him and Danielson are on every week. We complain about AEW not having the same guys, two faces that we love on the show.
And everyone wants to, us included on the flagship, we've been very critical of the way they've booked that TNT title over the last year. All it took was putting that strap back on Darby, and he's elevating that title. It's kind of what Gunther's doing to the IC title. If you throw them in that and you put them in matches, good matches, week after week after week. I mean, this guy's putting on matches on Dynamite and Rampage. Darby is crushing it right now.
On Friday's Rampage on the 27th, Hangman defeated Wheeler Yuta. Jamie Hayter defeated Emi Sakura in a title eliminator.
What a match.
Which is a really good match. Rampage was killing it. It's been really, really good so far.
Yeah, Rampage, it's a sleeper, and people like to say, it's the ratings are terrible. WBD loves the ratings. It always finishes in the top 5 for the night. So even though the ratings are low for the time slot, it's actually doing pretty good.
On Impact from the 26th, Trey Miguel defended his X Division Championship against Mike Jackson successfully, and main evented by the Golden 6-shooter match. Rich Swann defeated Moose, Eddie Edwards, Sami Callihan, and Rhino, and also Chris Sabin. He'll now go on to challenge the world champion Josh Alexander at No Surrender. This should be a good event. It's going to be taking place 2/24 in Vegas.
Yeah, fun match. All of those guys, that's kind of your quintessential Impact guys. Sami Callihan, Sabin, Swan, Moose, Eddie Edwards. Such a good group of dudes. And then you throw Rhino in there. It just makes it fun. All of the Impact shows are always great. And I think they're hitting on some stuff right now, man. I'm enjoying Impact.
MLW Fusion from also the 26th took place at the 2300 Arena, aka Swanson and Rittner, the ECW Arena. The main event was Taya Valkyrie defeating Trish Adora to retain the MLW Women's World Featherweight Championship. So good stuff happening in MLW aside from lawsuits with WWE.
Yeah. And Taya Valkyrie, man, she's kind of doing her thing. She's popping up in Impact. She's popping up in NWA. She's popping up in MLW. She's kind of taking that Matt Cardona route and dipping her toes in all the waters.
New Japan Strong on the 28th aired on Saturday, going head-to-head with the Rumble. Ballsy move, but I guess they figured people were going to watch it on tape. Mostly, it was taped in Hollywood, California at the Nemesis tapings, but Blake Christian defeated Kaito, which was a cool match to see. Seeing Blake Christian in New Japan was awesome. And the main event was the strong openweight champion Fred Rose, who defeated Peter Avalon to retain. And the winner of this match moved on to defend against Kenta at Battle of the Valley in San Jose. So it's going to be a good match.
Yeah, it'll be a really good match. Fred Rosser, man, he's kind of reinvented himself in New Japan. It's fun to see.
And we also had NXT from the 24th, main evented by NXT North American champion Wesley confronted G-Jack in a pre-tape, but also the Toxic Swerve ending in a championship summit. So they did this whole thing where Roxanne Perez and Toxic Attraction were all going against each other. And then they kind of did a swerve with Booker T that they tricked him. It was kind of just par for the course. We had a tag team championship match with Caden Carter and Katana Chance defeating Albert Fry and Sol Ruka. But if you're not watching NXT, you're not missing much.
Yeah, I know some people out there are really strong on it. I think Seth from Chick Foley has kind of praised the NXT, the new version of NXT. Something about it, man, I can't connect to it. I don't know if it's my love of black and gold that's kind of getting me to have a bias towards it, but I just can't attach myself to it.
Going to WWE on the 23rd last week was the 30th anniversary, and it drew the highest domestic gate in show history. So they said among all the episodes that took place in the U.S., last week's Raw, I should say, generated the most money from ticket sales in the Raw's 30-year history. So in the ballpark of $1.5 million at the gate, just based on ticket sales. And the show, as far as television ratings, did its best number in nearly 3 years. And it's likely to be the best number of 2023 when it's all said and done. It was the best viewer since February 17th, 2020. So big numbers for wrestling on both sides of the gamut too at AEW, but Raw blew it out of the water. And how could you not with all those guys on coming back legends-wise?
Yeah, when you throw all those names out there in your promotional stuff, the commercials, people are going to tune in. They love the nostalgia as much as we shit on it. Those casuals tune in for it. So I was not surprised for Raw 30th anniversary to draw a big number.
And main evented by Austin Theory defeating Bobby Lashley to retain the U.S. title. And Lesnar came back to get involved. F5 Austin Theory on top of Lashley where Theory pinned him. So pretty cool ending to Raw. And again, Theory being booked. You know, Lesnar helped him win, but he still was competing with Lashley throughout the match.
Yeah.
So on SmackDown the 27th, highlighted by Solo Sikoa defeating Kevin Owens via DQ. So Owens and Sikoa had a really great hard-hitting brawl. I mean, we touched upon the Bloodline stuff, not much to talk about. They built up the tensions to Royal Rumble perfectly. Where does Sami Zayn lie? It seemed like he was siding with the Bloodline clearly here, and there was some chances that he might have turned. Solo Sikoa super kicked him by accident. So it was a really good go-home show the night before the Rumble. It was exciting to watch them do this and have the last platform to get people to go out and watch Saturday.
Yeah, it was a good little thread to hook you in a day before Rumble. I thought it was well done. You know, they're not screwing much up on the Bloodline.
Let's go to Dave's Raves and talk about his match of the week and performer of the week. There's Uncle Dave. He has a match of the week for us, and then he dropped the newsletter on Monday, the 30th. That's today. NWA World Historic Welterweight Championship. Rocky Romero defeated Volador Jr. to win the championship January 20th from Mexico City. CMLL Viernes Espectacular. It was a fantastic match, according to Meltzer. He said the heat was incredible, probably the best I've seen for a match in a very long time. Fans were stomping the floor, heat by the latter stages of the match. Rocky Romero won clean with a flying armbar off the top rope, and he said he's the new face of CMLL. So, I mean, this is a match you have to go out and check out because he doesn't really talk about CMLL that much. For him to be highly praising this, it had to be something to stick out for everything that happened this week. I mean, it's a match you have to check out. CMLL doesn't get that much love in the newsletter usually.
Yeah, check out CMLL and you know, even AAA, like when Meltzer talks about heat, it got really good heat. Mexico crowds, man, they're a different breed. Like the heat that they bring for heels and stuff. I love a good Mexico crowd.
He had said, and this is the best quote, he said, this was the kind of match that would have been a classic in 1973, 1983, and probably in 2063 as well. I just love that quote.
Yeah.
Timeless match. So go out and check it out. He said performer of the week is a mix between Sami Zayn and Okada. So high praise for both those guys. And another match he wants everybody to check out is the Usos And later, Jay and Sami Zayn retained the tag titles over Mysterio and Damian Priest on Raw, 14 minutes and 6 seconds. 4 stars. That's from Raw last week.
Wow. Dave doesn't hand out a lot of high praise to WWE matches a lot of times. So
he liked the story too, because Jimmy got hurt and he had to go and defend the championships, and Sami Zayn earned the trust back after all that stuff. So some good high praise for the Bloodline stuff.
Yeah, man.
Let's get into the week ahead, preview what's going on in wrestling. All right, got the week ahead. Let's start with Dynamite because whatever, we start with AEW. Dynamite in 2/1/2023. We got a lot of matches lined up. Headlined by Jon Moxley and Hangman, page 3. We got Danielson versus Timothy Thatcher. Jade Cargill defends her TBS championship against Red Velvet. Darby Allin defending his TNT championship against Samoa Joe in a no-holds-barred match. Takeshita versus Brian Cage, and the AEW Tag Team Championship on the line versus a mystery opponent. So Dynamite's stacked for Wednesday.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about. Stack a card, stack your weekly show like that. Come on. That is like a pay-per-view worthy card. If you're not tuning in, Moxley, Hangman 3, Danielson, Timothy Thatcher, everybody. Timothy Thatcher. He plays perfectly. Bryan Danielson's got the bum wing. You got a guy coming in who's going to attack that bum wing. I'm here for it. You got a no holds barred match. Come on, man. This is going to be awesome. And Jade Cargill, Red Velvet, is this for number 50?
It should be. She was 49-0 as of her last match. So yeah,
50-0 Jade Cargill. They're pulling out a lot of big matches. I'm excited for Dynamite. Raw
tonight is 40 minutes on the air, but no matches were announced to start. But Cody and Rhea winning the Rumble fallout. How do they start the program at Roman? Who does Rhea target? So they're going to set the road to WrestleMania. So no matches announced. That's typically a WWE thing. We also have NWA Power. You have something to say about Raw first?
No. I was just going to say Power. Keep in mind, guys, it's free on YouTube. Like, it's no longer behind a paywall on Fight. So check it out. Support the company.
NXT, we have the New Day Tag Team Invitational, the Dyad versus Idris Enofe and Malik Blade versus Andre Chase and Duke Hudson. Other matches like Cora Jade and Leah Valkyrie, but this is the go-home show for NXT Vengeance Day, which happens on Saturday. So that's their premium live event for NXT. Leads in for that.
Yeah, I will say the top of their card, Braun Breaker and Grayson Waller, I see both of those guys as being something in the future, and they've perfectly built that feud between them.
Yeah, Vengeance Day being headlined by the aforementioned Braun Breaker and Grayson Waller in a steel cage match for the NXT Championship. The Women's Championship on the line, Roxanne Perez versus Gigi Dolan versus JC Jane. And the Tag Team Championship, New Day versus Gallus versus Pretty Deadly. I could totally see them taking the titles off New Day to put them on Pretty Deadly. I think that's pretty much assumed at this point, right?
I think that's match of the week, match of the event for sure. I love Gallus. I love Pretty Deadly. Both of those teams coming from NXT UK. I was just as big a fan of NXT UK as I was the Black and Gold brand. I thought they were highly underrated. Both of those teams are fun. And then you throw the New Day in with them. I think that could take the match of the night right there.
And on Impact on the 3rd of February, the Bullet Club is the team of Ace Austin and Chris Bay taking on Kushida and Kevin Knight. This will be an exact rematch from their clash in last year's Super Junior Tag League that saw Austin and Bay win. And they also wrestled an 8-man tag match less than a week later. So these guys have great chemistry, good history. Impact doing some good things over there. So check them out.
Yeah, Impact, man. I love that they're bringing the Bullet Club thing into Impact. They've had that. They've kind of loaned Chris Bay and Ace Austin out to Japan. They've made their name, and they're bringing that moniker into their company. And Kushida, dude, he's popping up everywhere.
He's the forbidden door now.
I know.
Kushida. Or he's time traveling like Marty McFly. He's just showing up.
Yeah.
We're waiting to show up in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Oh, no.
All right, so SmackDown on the 3rd as well on Friday. Headlined by Ricochet and Braun Strowman taking on Imperium in the SmackDown Tag Team Tournament Finals. We're also going to get Charlotte Flair defending her championship against Sonya Deville. I'm sure other matches will be announced. It's another furthering the Bloodline storyline. That's why people are tuning in. So that's the week ahead, man. A lot of wrestling to break down. I know we went an hour 45. I know that's not what we want to do, but goddamn, dude, the Rumble just happened. We had a lot to break down, and
We
I'm
had a
okay with
lot.
that goddamn shit.
Yeah, it was the Rumble, man. We had to get into the Cody. We had to get into the Bloodline. Sometimes we're going to go a little long. It's just what happens. Bear with us, guys. That's the show. Next week we'll come back. Hopefully there's some monumental stuff to break down. I love when big news happens because I'm instantly like, oh, me and Ace are going to get all over this. So
yeah, man, it was good stuff. And of course, you guys check out the first episode of season 3, episode 1, WWF 1998, January 5th, January 12th, Raw, plus Royal Rumble 1998. Of course, guys, check out the AEW wrap-up show. I'm sure Mike and Tom are going to crush it. Fig Night tomorrow. We got Raw Down happening. They're going to break down all the WWE stuff. Flagship, of course, Thursday morning. What are we missing? Long Balls are going to break down the Super Bowl. So good
Long
shit
Balls
going on there.
Off this week. So I believe next week they're off this week because there's a 2-week.
Oh, they're taking
gap.
the Pro Bowl break. I gotcha.
Yeah, the Pro Bowl break. Next week they return to break down the Super Bowl, and I believe that will be their last episode until probably the NFL draft.
Wow.
They'll go into hiatus as the season ends. They'll probably come back for, a draft special. They'll probably come back for a training day special. But yeah, check out the last episode of the Long Balls for the season.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff happening. And of course, don't forget Friday night, we're going to be having Brother Greatness for Visits the Tavern. Thanks for everyone checking out Sam Hain. Thanks for guys checking out Jordan Collins. We got a whole bunch of people on Visits the Tavern coming up down the line. Support independent wrestling any way you guys can. So seek out your local independents. And if there's someone you want to see on Visit the Tavern, hit them up on Instagram and then hook them up with me. I would love to interview them because we want to get the word out there for all independent wrestlers and get their name out there.
Yeah, and go show all the people in the tavern some love. Acefield Retro on IG, Mike Bellcaster, the OG Fig Kid coming down the aisle. Anthony, what's he at? ASC official now? Maybe
I think so. Check out his videos. He's been crushing it on Invictus Pro Wrestling, doing some announcing, and he's been backstage. He's crushing. He's the future of pro wrestling.
Yeah, he's the young stallion of the group, man. He's going to be on WWE taking over some commentary duties before we know it. MVP Marco, all of our buddies at the Pod Foundation, Chick Foley, Extra Cooler coming down the aisle, like we said. But guys, always fun having you here. Like and subscribe on Apple and Spotify. If you give us a review, it'll mean the world to us. It helps out so much. Leave in the review that you're listening to Wrestling Tonight. Also subscribe on YouTube. We're live every Monday at 7 p.m. If you're listening to the audio version, come check out the video version. Look at our ugly mugs. We like it. We like people jumping in the comments. Ace, any final words?
No, just again, support Turnbuckle Tavern. You guys want a sticker? Leave a review. I'll send you guys some Turnbuckle Tavern stickers. And if you're around February 11th, if you're not doing anything else, come out, check out Victory Pro Wrestling Notorious. I'll be there with a table giving out some stuff for Turnbuckle Tavern. I'll also be ring announcing at Better Than the Best 2, February 24th. Speaking of War Games, we can't call it War Games because WWE owns that, but Steel Cage Warzone 5-on-5 Mayhem. Remarkable Wrestling. I'll be doing the ring announcing, so come check it out. Some say hi to me. I'll give you some stickers. I'm always carrying that stuff on me.
Yeah, go say hi to Ace. He's lonely. He's lonely at these shows. Go say hi to him. Get some free shit. And in the spirit of Visits the Tavern, we're really big. We love the national stuff. We cover all of it here for you guys. But a thing we don't want you to lose: go support independent wrestling, man. Independent wrestling is the lifeblood of what we talk about here. If it wasn't for independent wrestling, you wouldn't have the Seth Rollins. You wouldn't have those guys. It all starts on the indies. So go catch a show. And most importantly, don't just catch the show. Buy some merch from these guys. It's how they put food on the table. So keep wrestling strong. And until next week, guys, keep it snug and stiff. We're Wrestling Tonight. For Ace, I'm Chad. See you next time.
Reach for the sky, boy.